Rahul,
Yes, ma'am.
are you live? Are we live?
Yes, ma'am, we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Teachers Day. आप सभी को शिक्षक दिवस की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं. We have a panel of absolutely resplendent and very distinguished teachers, Professors Rajita Kulkarni, Dr. S. Vaidya Subramaniam, Professor Rajneesh Arora ji, our own member secretary, Professor Rajiv Kumar, and our chairman who may join us in a while from now. We would start by playing Saraswati Vandana and our homage to the goddess Saraswati. Rahul, please play Saraswati Vandana.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
The end product of education should be a free, creative man who can battle against historical circumstances and adversities of nature. Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. These are the inspiring words of a great teacher, our honorable former president, whose birth anniversary we celebrate as Teachers' Day, as a mark of tribute to the contribution made by teachers to society. Let me at the outset extend a very, very warm welcome to each and every distinguished panelist who have joined us despite their busy schedule. Let us first, before we come to it, that how human values and education are integrated, and what is the integration between education and values. Education is a way of life, or if I may say, it is life itself, the way we behave, our reaction to different situations, how do we treat people, our intellectual, emotional, moral, cultural, and spiritual well-being, our contribution to community, society, nation, all are our values. Employability, marketability, and earning livelihood are just very, very minor attributes that are expected out of education. Values are principles that drive our behavior, influence our actions and attitude, response to varied circumstances, and become our framework for life. They inspire our interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships. So values in education are inseparable integrals. And true value of education is in providing a wisdom tool to each and every student to create a holistic and fulfilling life rather than merely making a living for himself out of the acquired knowledge from a college or university. Then on what does this fulfilling education system is based on? For this, we want to hear to our distinguished panelists, that is role of teachers in human values. Our first panelist is Mrs. Rajita Kulkarni. Professor Rajita Kulkarni is a successful banker turned educator, a very, very well-established author, a global thought leader, and a transformational leadership coach. So currently, she is President World Forum for Ethics in Business, President Sri Sri University, member of the Court of Indian Institute of Science, Trustee Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Vidya Mandir, Global Board Member, Alex Institute, Board Member, AOL Health and Education Trust, FICCI, India National Higher Education Council, CII.
Mamtaji, it's okay.
So, the list is too long, ma'am, and it's our privilege and honor to have you. So, may I request you to kindly address the August gathering? Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mamta ji, and greetings to all my esteemed panelists, and greetings to all the teachers who have joined us virtually today on this very beautiful day of Teachers' Day, this tradition of honoring and celebrating teachers that we have in India. Actually, in India, we are lucky because we celebrate it in two ways. We celebrate it on the day of Guru Purnima, which is also our Indian ancient tradition of honoring our teachers, our gurus. And today, 5th of September, we celebrate as Teachers' Day. I'm going to start with a small quote, which has been a very influential, in this quote has had a lot of influence on me. Gurudev Pujya Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankar ji has said that teachers can be a living example to their students. Not that teachers should look for students to idealize them. One who is worth idealizing does not care whether others idealize them or not. Everyone needs to see that as a teacher, you not only teach human values, but you live them. I think it is so apt for the topic that we are discussing today. And I would like to, Mamta ji, start by congratulating you and your team for selecting such an important topic. As you rightly said in your opening remarks, when students come into our classrooms for different subjects and at different stages of their life, there are different expectations they have, different aspirations they have, and sometimes the focus tends to be on what did I learn, so that what is the paycheck I will get when I graduate, or what is the kind of job I will get, what kind of business can I start. And these skills are very, very vital. These skills are very, very important. There is no doubt about it. And all of us as educators put a lot of focus on how we can make our students future ready, how we can help them build those domain knowledge and skills so that they can conduct a successful life. But if it was not already in our awareness, I think the pandemic has taught us a big lesson. It has taught us that we need a lot more to learn to conduct our life in a way that can be a happy life, a life which is happy, a life which is of some meaning. Gurudev often says we are not just born to eat, drink, work. There is a higher purpose to each of our lives. And as teachers, I think we play a very, very important role in helping our students understand and steer them towards that higher purpose. I often say this, and we know it, the world of tomorrow gets shaped in the classrooms of today. So what we do in the classrooms of today is going to decide how our world tomorrow is going to look like. There is a very beautiful quote in our Shastras, which says, Vidya dadati vinayam, vinayad yati patratam, patratva dhanam apnoti, dhana dharmam tatah sukham, which means that education leads to sensibility. Sensibility then helps attain character qualifications. And from that then comes wealth, and then good deeds follow. And from that comes joy. So the ultimate objective, I think, of education ought to be how to be a happy, joyful person that can live a full life in society and contribute back to society as well. So there are a few thoughts I want to share on how we as teachers can create that environment which supports and nurtures human values in our classrooms and amongst our students. Number one, I think I'm going to talk about a few S's. So number one, I'm going to say is sadhana. Now, what do I mean by that? Mamta ji, I was recently reading an article which said that about 33% of teachers in the European continent alone are living in extreme stress. And right now, after, the whole Ukraine invasion, there are a lot of challenges. So about a third of teachers in Europe are living in extreme stress. Now, if I, as a teacher, I am stressed, what is the level of joy I can create in my classroom? So my first insight would be that as teachers, we have to look at our own personal well-being, our own personal level of health physical health, mental health, emotional health. I would go as far as to say spiritual health. Because if I am calm, composed, if I feel a sense of peace in my mind, no matter how challenging the situation, I will deal with it in a very composed manner, in a very loving, in a very compassionate manner. And somewhere I think, today there is also a lot of talk about the emotional drainage that as teachers we experience in our classrooms, because we are teaching probably the same subject for years and years together, and that can create some sort of emotional drainage also for us. So my first insight for teachers, for all of us, is let us look at our own personal well-being, our own personal health and holistic health. As I said, physical well-being, mental, emotional. In our institutions, whether it's in our university or all our schools, meditation is part of our daily routine. Doing some pranayama, breathing techniques, Sudarshan Kriya, some yoga, not only for our students, but also for the teachers. And that creates and cultivates, nourishes our overall health. So I think the first step is our own personal well-being. The second, and that is therefore sadhana, and that helps us deal with our stress, and we are seeing it in our own institutions, how that is helping our teachers, and how in the last 2 years, especially in the pandemic time with all the challenges, how that was such a huge anchor for all of us. So that's number one, sadhana. Number two, and very, very vital, I think, is the aspect of seva, service. What I mean by that is that if you look at the environment around us, with all the consumerism that is around us and all the aspirations that are created, whether it's by social media, all that is happening around us, somehow we tend to look at only those who have more than us. And that continuously creates a certain sense of angst and, sense of lack. Oh, I don't have this. My friend has that. My neighbor has that. Some random person on social media who I don't even know is going for a holiday somewhere. I'm not doing it. So all that is having a lot of effect on the mind. We have seen how actively engaging in service projects for our community can help bring that space of fulfillment and contentment. So when you look at those who don't have as much as you, I think it infuses you. I have seen this with personal experience. I'm seeing it in my classrooms with my colleagues, that you do some seva project, some service activity in your community, and the level of fulfillment it creates for you, contentment, is unparalleled. And when you feel that contentment, that then you can infuse in your students. If you are only not contented as a teacher, how can you help your students feel that sense of contentment or fulfillment? So I think service is an important part of creating that environment of a sense of I'm saying it again, but contentment in our classrooms, infusing that is very important. It also brings an element of compassion. Mamta ji, you very beautifully in your opening remarks spoke about a number of values. We say compassion. Now, how do you teach compassion? How do you help a student experience compassion? That is what I think we need to look at. And, I have seen that in our own students. I will give you a small example. We did a project, we are still doing it, where we distribute solar lights to villages which don't have so many lights. And one day I remember in our own university, in our earlier years, some students were complaining about, some light not being working in one patch of a road. That day we were going to a neighboring village to give solar lights in a place where there were no lights ever. They never had lights in that village. And when we came back, the same students said, oh my God, we didn't realize there are people living without lights. This is okay if this takes a little while to repair. Now that sense, that sensibility, that space of compassion, I think that is what comes by service. The third S I want to talk about is satsang. Now, satsang, I don't mean like singing and, sitting and, doing singing. That's part of it. But the company of truth, helping students go deeper within themselves. I think that is important in whatever way of activities that can be, whether reflection, whether group activities, etc., where students get a chance to go inward, to look at really, because our life has become so outward. Everything is outward. I think 16 to 18 hours of the day, we are completely outwardly oriented. And if we can help our students go little inward, I think these values are all within us. You know, the values as children, we all have been, and we have seen little children, we are seeing, they are full of joy, enthusiasm, a sense of compassion. They live in the moment. But somehow, as you grow older, some of these things start getting covered by veils of stress or bias or prejudice. And the more inward we go, in Sanskrit, there is a beautiful quote which says, Antarmukhi Sada Sukhi. And that is what also I think is a duty of us as teachers, to help our students go a little inward. The fourth S I want to talk about, and I know I will finish in a few minutes in terms of the time. The fourth S is a sense of synergy. You know, how much can we synergize more than divide? I think that is an important culture we have to create. I think academically also, all the changes that are happening through the NEP, whether it's multidisciplinary education, all of these are helping bringing people together, bringing different states of minds, ways of thinking together, and creating a spirit of synergy. I think is very, 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 very important and fundamental to further success in life, because life is all about collaboration. It's all about synergy. It's all about being there for each other. But sometimes in our education system, we evaluate a student individually, but then tomorrow for success, he or she needs to be able to synergize and collaborate better. So I think that's also another responsibility we have, of creating that space of synergy. And the last S I want to talk about is the S of silence. I think in the crowd of noise, in the crowd of all the bombarding stimuli on us, I think all of us need to take a little bit of silence, whatever is the practice of meditation, being quiet, being in nature. Because the minute things quieten down, all those values that are inherent in us, joy is inherent in us, kindness is inherent in us, the space of compassion is inherent in us. It just gets veiled by our own stresses or the busyness of life. So I think creating a space for a little bit of silence. Mamta ji, in our university, we start an academic year with a 3-day silence retreat. All students, all faculty members, we participate in the advanced course and do meditation, just that time for yourself. And it creates so much rejuvenation, refreshes you. And, when you feel good, you do good. So I think we can experiment with creating that space of silence. We are seeing the benefit of that. And as Gurudev always says, human values are there in us. It is, we are made up of compassion, of love, of joy. It just has to be uncovered. And when we are in this space in this space, then that uncovering happens beautifully. I think in all teachers all around the world today, I think a huge, I think it's a big, it's a big gift to be a teacher, and it's a big blessing to have a teacher. So both ways, I think a teacher has a very important role to play. And today, choosing this topic, Mamta ji, you have brought back the vital importance of human values. And just lastly, I would say multicultural education and education about peace. Societal peace only comes with individual peace. So little education on peace and creating that environment to feel that peace, I think, again, is very important for us as teachers and educators. So I wish all teachers who have joined here today all the very best, and big salutations to you for all the great work you do day in, day out in your classrooms. All the very best. Namaste.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. What a mesmerizing, what a joyous speak. It is such a pleasure to my ears to listen to you. Sadhana, seva, satsang, sense of synergy, and power of silence. You actually, gagar mein sagar, what you say, the most beautifully, the way you have spoken, I just can't explain it to you. So, our heartfelt gratitude. And as ma'am, you have said it, that feelings of compassion, humanity, and a sense of fulfillment awakens when we give back to us people, our country, our society. There is nothing greater to center our focus than beginning to understand just how much we have to be grateful for to Mother Earth, to all others, to our parents, to our teachers, and to our surroundings, to each one we have in our life. Thank you so very much, ma'am. And thank you for agreeing to be one of our panelists. Our next panelist is equally distinguished Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor and Tata Sons Chair Professor of Management. And he is the Vice Chancellor of Shastra, deemed to be University, Thanjavur, and alumnus of Harvard Business School with interest in public policy and higher education management, PhD in the area of MBA education in India, a visiting scholar at University of Virginia, MBA from Asian Institute of Management, Manila, BE in Electronics and Instrumentation from Bharatidasan University. He has also worked extensively with corporate world, from Siemens to Marlaco, Johnson & Johnson, United States, member in Ministry of Education, UGC, AICTE's various high-powered committees, CII, and SOChem committees on higher education in various academic bodies, Young Manager Award winning team member, Madras Management Association 1996, been resource person for LKY School of Public Policy, NUS, and Asian Development Bank. So welcome, sir. Now we would like to hear from you not only role of teachers in inculcating human values, but also inspiring moralistic academic leadership, which you specifically wanted to talk about. Thank you. Kindly unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Kindly unmute.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mamta, for the generous introduction, and to the distinguished co-panelists and the online audience. My Teachers' Day pranams to all of you. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'm extremely thankful for inviting me to address this very important session on the role of teachers in inculcating human value, and also a little bit of how leadership plays a very important role in that process as well. Let me first begin by sharing with you on the very abstract terminology of value. The term value itself is so abstract that it is left for interpretation and definitions by each and every individual in their own context as they would like to define itself. So let me use this opportunity to add a new context to this definition as to the value that I see as teachers needing to build comprises of three important dimensions: the value of the country, the nation, the value of the institution in which they work, and the individual value. And let me explain that each of these three very quickly, beginning with the national value. When Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago to address the World Parliament of Religions, he actually undertook that trip to Chicago after having made a sweeping visit across all places in India. And the places that he visited before he went to Chicago were not those places that were enriched with prosperity. They were actually impoverished with adversity, whether it was the floods and famines across different parts of the country at the Deccan Plateau, or the Bengal famine, or in Punjab, or other places. It was an overwhelming, impoverished adversity, and the circumstances that were confronting the nation at that point of time was very challenging. And it was with that background that Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago. And when he began his address at the World Parliament of Religions, he began, sisters and brothers, and went on to demonstrate to the world how India as a country has the potential to be a global leader. Now, that was the tall spiritual statesmanship of Swami Vivekananda, who after having undertaken a trip of India that pictured multidimensional adversity, but had the confidence in the nation that he was representing before a very distinguished audience in Chicago, and with that full confidence was able to tell the world that India has the potentiality to be a global leader. That is the level of confidence that we should have in our own nation. And it cannot come at a time more appropriate than now, as we just celebrated the 75th year of Indian independence. When we celebrated the 50th year of Indian independence, I distinctly remember the article by a very eminent historian, William Dalrymple, who wrote for The Guardian, who said that the time of India has come, that it is an empire that is striking back and not the story of rags to riches. And that was when we celebrated the 50th year of Indian independence. When we celebrate the 75th and as we enter the 76th year now, it is also very heartening to note that we are amongst the top 5 economically powerful nations in the world. So true is the story that it is not a rags to riches recovery of India, but an empire which is striking back, establishing its leadership position in the global community of nations. So that's the first value that we should build amongst ourselves as teachers and also transmit the same to the students. The second important value is the institutional value. I want every teacher to look at the institution, whether it is a school or a higher educational institution, as a set of different value generating activities within the institution. Only if we are able to unbundle and disaggregate a higher education institution into individual value generating entities, we will be able to identify each activity entity as something that is capable of generating a value. And as we generate a value is just an incremental addition to the multidimensional objective of a higher educational institution. So as we keep generating value from each of these activities, the bundling or the aggregation of all these values of these individual value activities is symbolic of the entire value chain of the higher education institution. And only if you are able to differentiate in each of those value generating activities can your higher education institution be an overall differentiator. Now, for example, if you are able to generate value in one activity, the probability that somebody else will imitate, let's say it is 0.9. And if you stop with just one value generating activity, there will be another institution which will also continue to do the same thing because it is just imitating from yours. So how long can you be sustainable in a differentiating mechanism? As against trying to create values in two different activities, that creates a probability of 0.81. And as we go forward, we create value in more activities. The probability that somebody else will imitate or replicate the same becomes 0.9 raised to the power of n. It becomes very difficult. And that's how higher education institutions have to uniquely differentiate themselves to make them very sustainable in the long period of time. And this is something that teachers have to understand, that every higher education institution has a value chain approach embedded in itself. So from the country's value to the institution value, let me get into the third important dimension of the individual value. The individual value is very, very important, more important for the noble profession of teaching that we are engaged in. Remember, as teachers, we actually share the knowledge with the student community. And I usually share this example with an audience of this type. We remember in our school days, when the school teachers sit on a chair and students in the KG level education, they sit on the floor. And as they progress into class 3, 4, 5, they just sit on a small chair and the teacher still sits on the same chair. Then they get into the higher school education. They sit on a higher level of chair. And then they come to higher secondary school where the level of the chair is the same between the teacher and the student. And then they come into the higher education institutions. The teacher still sits in the same chair while the classroom gives a kind of a gallery atmosphere where the student sits at higher elevated positions in their chair. the lesson that we have to get as teachers is that all along we have been sitting in the same position, but we have always ensured that we elevate the student to higher levels of knowledge through their entire teaching learning career that we are endowed with. Now, that is a very symbolic message that we as teachers need to understand ourselves, that we are in a tireless, thankless, and selfless service that we have to discharge to ensure and elevate the knowledge acquisition of the learning community before us. There may be a lot of qualifications for a teacher. So any authority that appoints teachers will have a lot of qualifications. But then the value that I attach is more to the disqualification of a teacher. And I consider 4 major disqualification dimensions for a teacher that has closely aligned with a value set. A teacher must never be an immethodical teacher, because an immethodical teacher is compared to marbles in a pot, because marbles in a pot do not lie in order. There is no regularity in its positioning, but very promiscuously and very confusingly they get arranged themselves. A teacher must never be inaccessible. An inaccessible teacher is like a rough, thorny, palmyra tree, where on account of the difficulty of having access to its fruits, unless it drops itself spontaneously. A teacher should never be a half instructed teacher. A half instructed teacher is like a cotton holder or a tinder box, which receives through its small orifice, little by little with difficulty, and then dispenses the knowledge with greater difficulty. And lastly, a teacher should never be neglectful, because a neglectful teacher is compared to a recumbent coconut tree which leans over and drops its fruit into a stranger's ground and deprives the owner of the fruit. So a teacher should not be immethodical, inaccessible, half instructed, or neglectful. These are the 4 important disqualifications of a teacher, or rather, in a positive way of putting it, 4 important value items that the teachers have to imbibe is to be more methodical, more accessible, fully instructed, and fully caring when they discharge this noble profession of teaching. And just stepping the pedal to higher levels of leadership. Leadership is very, very important in building a sense of value which comprises the national value, the institutional value, as well as the individual value in the higher education ecosystem. And that is why, as the leaders, we should assume the leadership role as role makers and not role takers, role linkers and not role shrinkers, and role centering and not just role entering. So with these 3 broad role definitions of leaders, I thank the organizers for this opportunity, and I'm sure that you will understand that the committee of a nation's value, an institution's value, and the individual value, all 3 put together will give a multi-dimensional, or rather a 3-dimensional perspective of human values that is essential for the teaching ecosystem at large in the higher education space of our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Professor Baja Subramaniam. It was indeed a very, very powerful address, and telling us that, how teachers need to integrate their national level, institutional level, and their individual level values. And, what are those 4 disqualifications? I think, there can be many more, but you restricted it to 4. But then, everything encompasses within these 4 disqualifications. So we actually need those dedicated, those committed teachers. Thank you so very much. Now I would invite our next panelist and Professor Arora. Professor Arora, if you can kindly switch your camera on. Professor Rajneesh Arora. Professor Rajneesh Arora, can you hear me?
Yes, that we can.
Professor Rajneesh Arora, am I audible to you?
I'll just come in 10 minutes.
Professor Arora is a former Vice Chancellor of Punjab Technical University. He is BTech PhD from IIT Delhi in renewable energy and sustainable development. During his initial years, then when he was young, he has dedicated 13 years for social reforms, and he worked tirelessly for the development of tribal villages of Jharkhand and co-founded a social organization called Vikas Bharati. Even after 40 years, the organization continuously working and achieving its set milestones. He has also worked at Guru Nanak Dev University. He, during his tenure at GNDU as training and placement officer, established a culture of companies of national international repute, coming for placements as a vice chancellor of Punjab Technical University, implemented a course on universal human values in 2011 itself, and inspired many technical universities to incorporate universal human values in technical education. Thank you so very much, Professor Arora, for joining us. If you can kindly address the gathering.
Thank you very much, Mamta ji. I'll request Rahul ji just to share my slides. I hope I have 15 minutes for me. Otherwise, as per your minutes program,
Yes,
it
sir.
will
Yes,
be
sir.
only
You
up
have
to.
you
Okay,
have 15,
okay,
you
okay.
have 15.
Okay, as per today's topic, I'll just share with you three things in this role of teachers in inculcating human values. Next slide, Rahul ji. One is what are the accepted
We can't hear you, sir. Kindly check your connectivity. Professor Arora, we can't hear you. Professor Arora, you may leave and rejoin in case there is a problem in connectivity.
Sorry, there was some technical glitch. I was disconnected. The second is role of teachers and specific things teachers can do immediately, and so that we can have the end product as per expectations of Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan ji. As he had said that the end product of education should be a free, creative man who can battle against historical circumstances and adversities of nature. So this is the expectation of our experts or Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan ji, and it has been articulated in national education policy very well. The next slide, Rahul ji. When we just read the first line on the first paragraph, that expectations of education is to achieve full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. You can just see on the first page of national education policy, when we just develop on it, next slide. Full human potential means the individual level, it is not only the body, but the consciousness has to be developed so that the person can experience happiness and prosperity in continuity. And that is the thing expected from education, to develop the students to that full human potential. And at the level of society, it is expected an equitable and just society. That means at every individual level, right understanding and right feeling. At the family level, prosperity in every family. At society, social level, fearlessness in society. And in nature and existence, there has to be a feeling of coexistence, mutual fulfillment. And when we say promoting national development, That means harmony within the nation and complementarity to other nations. That is the symbol of national development. Now, it is expected from education to prepare people competent to fulfill these aspirations. Now, these are the expectations. Now, what is the role of education? So, from education, it is expected that there are common graduate attributes in higher education which are applicable to all disciplines. That is holistic vision of life, socially responsible behavior, environmentally responsible work, ethical human conduct, having competence and capabilities for maintaining health and hygiene, and respect for excellence and gratitude for all. So this is expected from every graduate coming from any discipline. Then we have discipline specific attribute also, like in engineering, we need individual teamwork, communication skills, ethics and equity, lifelong learning. These are also common attributes, but these are discussed in engineering side much more. And then other things, problem analysis, investigation, design, etc. Now, when these are the expectations of society from education, so what are the things which are expected from teachers? Next, I have to finish in 15 minutes. In AICTE, we are doing it in 3 basic steps. In AICTE, for value-based education, we have produced one document which has been released just last month. It is available on AICTE website, Universal Human Values, Holistic Value-Based Education, and Realizing the Aspirations Articulated in National Education Policy. It is the 3 things which are there in this document. One is Universal Human Values, which is humane world vision and human values. Second is studies from Indian knowledge. National and international examples which are focused on well-being of all. And third is, it is about the nature-friendly and people-friendly skills which are to be put in practice. So all 3 aspects of human values and our own Indian knowledge system and the world-class nature-friendly skills. Next. When we talk about universal human values, that means the values which are universal in nature, which are rational, which are verifiable, which lead to harmony at all levels. When we see at different levels, in individual level, my value for myself is ensuring happiness in myself and health in my body. And in family, my value in family is ensuring feeling of relationship and prosperity. My value in society is to participate in social systems for justice, peace, and harmony. And my value in nature and existence, mutual fulfillment with the rest of nature. So now these values at different levels are to be understood by students. And this is the basis of this whole value education program. And there are steps here. One is leadership development program on holistic value-based education for policymakers. Second is management development programs on HVB for management, directors and principals in colleges. And the third most important is faculty development program on value education, inclusion of value education in faculty induction program, and the things which are planned, the B.Ed and M.Ed program to be modeled as per HVB. The earlier things AICTE is already doing in its SIP cell. Then certified PG diploma as well as UG and PG minor degree programs. This year AICTE has approved in its EC a minor degree on universal human values, and similar minor degree programs in holistic development, sustainable energy systems are also part of it. Next. Now, just wanted to share with you what are the things already there in AICTE. These are mandatory 3-week induction program on UHV module, and second is UHV2 program, and third is the full approval process handbook. They have given that only those colleges, those who have trained teachers for this purpose, they are allowed to teach this course in this. So now just closing down, I'll just share with you 2 points that major role in value education activities to make them successful is about the teachers themselves understanding about this value education process. This process is not just delivering a content, but here the students are to be given this content not as set of instructions, but they are to be given these content as proposals. Students are encouraged to explore it within themselves, whether they find it correct or not. At the stage of higher education, if we try to just preach them, just try to give them do's and don'ts, they don't reach towards inculcating human values. In case of human values, instead of finding the process of discipline, we have to reach to the self-discipline. And self-discipline comes through self-exploration. This process of self-exploration has given much better results in our AICTE programs. I'll ask, hope am I audible now? Mamta ji? Yes.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes. So I'll just close my remarks that it is in value education, both content and the process are important. So teachers will have to be very proficient in the process part as far as value education is concerned. In other cases, we are that lectures and the labs are sufficient. But in case of value education, we must have those practice sessions where students are encouraged to ask questions from the teachers so that they can clear all the doubts. The real value-based living starts when there is complete clarity of thought, when you are not doing it just as orders from your teachers or elders or orders from your parents, but you are doing it because it is as per your natural acceptability. Then only you go from discipline to self-discipline. So this is a major role of teachers to clear all doubts of their students. And it is possible only when the guidelines for education are 4 points. One is all these values are universal. They are not applicable to India or to one religion or to one region. They are applicable to Asia, Australia, Africa, America, or Europe. And they are rational in nature. They appeal to human reasoning. And the third is they are verifiable in your life. You can verify it through your conduct. When you live as per those values, they lead to harmony at all levels within yourself, with your actions, with your realizations, and in life also. When you conduct your life as per those values, then you get harmony in family, you get harmony in your society, you get harmony in your nature. So this whole thing is only possible when you explore it within yourself. This whole value education starts from teachers, and teachers have to explore within themselves. So this is a major thing I just wanted to share with you. Thank you very much. Thank you for providing me this time on this Shiksha Parv. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Professor Arora. And thank you so very much, all my distinguished experts who have spoken. Values are integral part of us, and values make us who we are. And our teachers are the custodians of our values. And as our first speaker, ma'am, said, that, sadhana, seva, satsang, sense of synergy, silence and power of silence. And then Professor Subramaniam, that integration of national level, institutional level, and individual level values into one teacher, and then understanding and teaching with being a role model and sense of purpose, sense of belongingness, and sense of commitment. Professor Arora also has tried to make it that, how can the value teaching be structured and can be put into place within our structured curriculum. Thank you so very much, all our distinguished participants, for joining us. We are at Atal Academy on behalf of AICTE, express our heartfelt gratitude for your time and engagement. Thank you so very much. Have a very good day. Thank you.